It started as a random burst of energy readings and strange, garbled radio transmissions while refueling our ship. We weren't even supposed to be in the sector when our communicators chimed with strange language and static. At first, we just assumed it was random static caused by the gas giant we were harvesting fuel from. Not uncommon for any species with pattern recognition abilities to confuse random static with radio chatter. But this wasn't like that. While recording and filtering it, we intercepted a transmission directly. It was too organized, too direct to be random static. Someone was clearly speaking, but in a language that nobody understood. It spoke with a concerned, militaristic tone. This took us by surprise. We focused the signal in an attempt to filter it out, or determine what it was or where it was coming from. It wasn't radio static from the gas giant. It was radio transmissions coming from one of the inner planets. We stopped all operations, finished refueling, and started to explore the solar system. It didn't take us long to find the offending world. And by all the gods was it confusing. The planet's upper atmosphere was saturated in space junk of all kinds, and satellites of all kinds, both derelict and functioning. We quickly found one and tapped into it. No real challenge, as most of its systems were either dormant or easily bypassed. It was in short order before we managed to find other satellites and tap into them too. And within a few local days, we had every satellite still operational under our control. It was strange. They didn't fight back. It's like they didn't even know we were trying. That by itself made us think something odd was going on. Even several machines designated as military networks didn't even activate firewall protocols. A few of them even had some specialized data stored on them erased and the hardware scorched. Most unusual. Their operators knew something we couldn't know, apparently. We started performing scans and downloading all the data from the satellites. Turns out the radio transmissions weren't flukes or ghost signals. They were still active. It took us time, more time than it usually would, to get the translation matrix to understand the languages. And there were many. One broadcast was something called a firewatch station reporting on local forestry. Among these notes were movements in the tree line. Strange. One broadcast was a radio station that played some apparently very old classical music, along with news broadcasts. Unfortunately, even with translation matrices, we couldn't understand half of it. The operator of this radio broadcast was almost constantly intoxicated, babbling about them. We started to run stronger, more insecure scans on the planet. We were actually quite happy about the local populace. Even basic scans were telling us this species, wherever it was ingenious. It was a species that understood the concept of logistics to such a degree that the planning for it put most of the galaxy to shame. We could easily tell that the massive road networks were well planned, and underneath all the rubble and debris, we noted a clear motive and intelligent plan behind the logistics network. Scans of derelict or abandoned equipment showed a relatively primitive technology level, maybe a few generations away from proper space travel. But the way it was deployed was beyond ingenious. The combustion engines they used for fossil fuels were pollutive, but for what they were, extremely efficient for the task. The logistics system of their electricity network was also quite impressive. Even tech we didn't think would work, worked. Hydroelectrics, using moving water to generate power? Pure genius. Distracted from the technological achievements, we failed to notice a very dark shadow that seemed to roam across this planet's surface. There was damage, dereliction, and destruction everywhere. Though the tech and deployment of this tech was truly impressive, revolutionary even, the planet was in a strangely recent state of devastation, around 100 local days or so ago by what our scans could tell. Most major metropolitan or city-based population centers were in a major state of decay, still populated and very active. But it was like nobody was repairing anything or maintaining structure. The damage patterns made no sense, though. If it was a major military conflict, which is what usually destroyed fledgling empires, the damage patterns made no sense. Mostly fires, damages from burning, signs of combat, certainly. Even a few high-grade military vehicles around, but nothing to suggest a major conflict. Military bases and other facilities were all but abandoned. We tried to find out what was going on, but scans weren't accomplishing anything. Places outside of various zones had no power, so electronic entry was not an option. Places that did have power due to proximity of natural electricity generation such as hydro dams and other sources had no real information to give us on what was going on. We deeply wanted to uplift this species for the galaxy as a whole. The more we looked at what they were accomplishing with the stupid stuff they had, the more we salivated at the thought of what they would do with more advanced tech. We decided to break protocol and take a more proactive approach. We weren't supposed to do this, but the possibilities offered by this planet were too great to ignore or wait for. We sent down a few probes, direct contact with the locals, a serious violation of protocol. 5 drones to start, 3 sent to major areas of high activity. The first drone approached a city, or what was left of one, and watched from above, trying to remain quiet. Sporadic sounds of what we surmised were gunfire, burning structures, and members of the local species wandering around. Seemingly aimlessly for some reason, the local species looked strange. Gray-paled skin, milky eyes, and they made no real coherent sounds beyond grunts and growls. Most wandered about in packs and herds. We made that drone take a few surveillance pictures and set up a patrol around the area to see if anything changed. The second drone entered a massive city built onto an isolated island that we later found out was a place called Manhattan. The island was connected to the mainland by a series of 21 bridges, all of which were elaborately and beautifully designed, half of which had been completely or partially destroyed. The other half were either rigged with explosives or too heavily clogged with piled debris and traffic to be of use. We took detailed scans of the construction of the intact bridges and spent hours just marveling at the beautiful, sturdy construction and building techniques used. Some of the material wasn't supposed to be even used on bridges like this, but the locals managed to find a way to get it to work. Pure genius. So engrossed in the designs were we failed to take real note of the devastation. Hordes of the locals wandering about in disheveled manners, chasing down other locals who were able to quickly retreat from them. The drone was made to stay behind and perform detailed scans on the local area and bridges specifically, ultimately ignoring the damage of the local area. A mistake on our part, to be certain. The third probe managed to get close and personal to a local at a place called a diner. It was found wandering about outside, making grunting noises, standing still for hours, and aimlessly wandering about outside some kind of food establishment. It offered no reaction to the drone's presence, growled at any attempt at communication, and simply wandered away from the location. The locals looked very strange, though. There must have been some genetic variants of a very wild nature for this species, as we found some odd things about them. A common thread was 1 head, 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms with 10 digits on each hand. This one had only part of 1 arm, no left foot, and part of its eye was no longer in the socket. We had noticed other locals with similar peculiarities among the species, such as eyes entirely missing, but still able to move toward the direction of whatever it was they wanted. Other members of this species had what appeared to be external mutations of organs, such as intestines on the outside or 1 lung inside, while the other was outside. Strange. The local dismissed our attempts at communication, and the probe was returned back to base for recall, as there was some kind of mechanical failure with it. Probe 4 found 1 local alone in a forest somewhere, and we decided to just beam it up to the ship for close observation. The probe sedated it successfully, and we had it under observation. Further details of records were becoming clearer now, and this thing was called a human. We figured we would borrow one for a few days to see what it was, then gently put it back where it came from. The ship's biohazard sensors immediately went berserk with warnings as soon as it was on board. Those were dismissed, of course, and a basic sterilization procedure cleared any potential hazards almost instantly. The human was restrained and put on an observation table. Despite the heavy sedation we used, it was still active. It was twitching, moving, and growling. We offered it food of ours, but it seemed to be uninterested. It clearly displayed the behavior of a creature who was hungry but didn't want to eat any food we gave it. One of our researchers accidentally got too close to its mouth and got bit, but the creature spat out what was there and began wailing in pain or something. Strange. It allowed us to take some very detailed medical scans, and we started to better understand their biology. We did, however, discover it had some kind of infection in its system, and we very quickly developed a sterilization agent for this odd affliction. But as soon as we administered the agent, the creature just up and died. All life signs failed, all movement stopped. A little spray of the agent we had developed, and poof, it was gone. We had no choice but to incinerate the body and place it under a further investigation to try to figure out what happened. We tried to forget this happened. The 5th drone we deployed was sent to one of the new settlements in the Alaska region, discovering a more coherent form of human. Strange. The probe at first moved in tree lines and tried to stay hidden for the most part. The settlement was made of destroyed vehicles with their tires removed and built as makeshift barricades. Other tires piled up on top of each other to form a wall of some kind. Trees had been cut down for a full half-mile to make log walls. Other trees sharpened and used as a spike perimeter. Makeshift barricades? Broken cars used as doors? A construction crane was used as a gate mechanism as well, using a bus as a gate that lifted up. Ingenious, but why was it even necessary? We decided to take some closer scans and find out what was happening. The drone hid high up in a tree covered by a few branches and took some aerial footage. A small community of maybe 1,000 humans had effectively cordoned off an entire town with a makeshift wall and were living in it together. Marketplaces, bars, restaurants, even a movie theater were still active. We couldn't help ourselves and got far too close for protocol's sake and took closer scans on everything we could find. The cars, the theater, the pumping system on the water supply. Anything and everything we could find, we scanned it and tried to make sense of its construction. We got so excited at all the ingenious and very unorthodox construction and manufacturing techniques. It was amazing. So much development, so much equipment, and a lot of it was incredibly specialized, which explained why there was so much of it. The drone was so busy actually taking scans we failed to notice its presence had been acknowledged by the populace. In the background, curious eyes looked up at it as it scanned and meticulously photographed various vehicles and pieces of equipment. By the time it was done, the majority of the town had noticed and were actively watching the drone work. It came to a conclusion when it approached a specific, very fancy-looking car and swept its scan beam over the vehicle. The drone registered damage and one of the researchers decided to take direct control of it. A rock. One human had thrown a rock at it. The drone looked at the offender, and a dozen or more humans were gathered around him. This was the first time we paid any serious attention to the local populace. There was uniformity in genetics here. No external intestines, no external eyes, no missing arms or legs. What? This confused us. We stared at them. They stared at the drone for a long time. The drone took advantage of the awkward silence and scanned the crowd with detail, then hastily exited the planet to return to the ship. That encounter scared us and snapped us back into reality. We had been so busy drooling over the species' achievements in technology, we had completely forgotten this was an actually inhabited planet. We recollected ourselves and got back to trying to understand this planet, and we had no clue. 7 local days of attempting to collate the data we found, and we had little to no idea what happened. It also didn't help that we spent most of our time collecting engineering data either. Our entire operation was a breach of protocol in every action we took thus far. So we decided to break protocol even more. We decided after days of remaining in the dark about this planet despite our best efforts, we would just ask. Unorthodox. Normally we could figure it out on our own, but due to the odd circumstances and our own incompetence, we had no real data to work with. So we simply decided to find a human, bring it on board the ship, and politely ask. Unorthodox methodology, if any. Never been done before either. So we went with it. We sent a team to a remote location. In this case, what is known as a firewatch tower, a sort of outpost in forests to check for wildfires, and found the local human high in his tower. The team went down in a shuttle, one of our researchers and 5 security officers, along with a drone they could use to pacify in case of any issues. The drone made first contact with the human in the tower. The speaker on the drone allowed direct contact with the human. Human, we know you are in there. Exit your domicile immediately. I ain't doing shit. I can hear those things under me, he replied, clearly agitated. We mean you no harm, but you must come with us. We have questions we want to ask. The drone speaker carried the voice of the head of research. You can't get me to leave until they do! I ain't doing shit, Fed, he yelled. The humans under the tower growled angrily at the sound of the other human's voice and tried to chew on the steel tower's supports. We will move our transport close to you. We can promise you won't ever touch the ground. Come now. Quickly, please. We do not wish to engage in violence, but we will if you leave us no choice. The drone yelled again. The shuttle pilot moved the ship close to the railing on the tower, and 2 of the security team members jumped out to secure the area. The human, with apparent reluctance, got up out of his hiding place under a desk and exited with his hands raised. These humans were short. Very short. The soldiers towered above him by 2 feet and had to crane their necks to look at him. The human finally saw what was there and became just as confused as we were. Well, that's a thing, I guess. The hell is going on? Why are you so tall? He asked one of the guardsmen. I could ask you why you are so short, too human. Get in! Your guests appear to be getting angry, the guard replied. Those aren't my guests, they want to eat me. Please keep them away and I'll do whatever you ask. The human replied and, still with his hands raised, entered the shuttle. They want to eat you? Do humans do that? One of the guards asked. No, but zombies do. Can we go now? He asked. We stood silent. Zombies? What was a zombie? We were soon to find out as the guards re-entered the shuttle and sealed it for the trip to orbit. The human glanced at everyone on board and tried to make sense of what was going on. So, you aren't from here, are you? He asked. That is an understatement, one of the guards replied. So, how long have you been here? He asked again. About 12 of your local rotations. I think you call them days, the researcher replied. Does that mean you weren't responsible in any way for what happened last year then? The human asked, clearly agitated. We didn't even know your planet existed until a month ago. Do not falsely accuse us of wrongdoing. We have the evidence to support our claim, one of the guards aggressively replied. The human held his hands in front of him in a defensive manner. Okay. Wasn't implying anything. I was just curious. Kinda in a bad spot here, so excuse my curiosity. We are here. Proceed to your holding cell, please, the scientist said and escorted the human there. Okay, he said. We spent some time getting everything ready for the interview process and let the human rest a while. Eventually, we actually came round to it. The human sat opposite Grockald, the head researcher, and the two spoke for a while. So, human, I assume your species has naming conventions. Do you have a name? Grockald asked. Reggie Dwight Jr. is my name. U.S. Army Rangers is the organization I used to work for before they all got eaten. Firewatch Post 86 Echo was where you found me. Your turn, the human said with a strange grin. Grockald Eld is my name. The Eridani Imperium's research division is who I work for. Kasaria's Kiss is where we currently are. It is a starship, Grockald responded in kind. I gathered that. Used to send up a few rockets back in the day to space to see what was up there. Turns out not much. At least not much we could get, Reggie said. Indeed. We can tell your space programs were excessive judging by the debris we had to sort through. So tell me, human, what happened to this planet? Grockald asked. Zombie apocalypse. Pretty much it, really, Reggie replied, shrugging his shoulders. What is that? I know what an apocalypse is. It is a singular, all-encompassing event of catastrophic proportions that deals upon its victims unimaginable destruction, changing the face of an entire civilization forever. That much I know. But what in the void is a zombie? Grockald asked. You seriously have no concept of the undead? Reggie asked, confused and surprised. Undead? What is an undead? Is that the name of a town or something? No. An undead is a zombie, ghoul, demon, or monster. Living dead. Paradox, one may say, but it is the truth. It's like a virus that kills the body, then resurrects the corpse to use as a means to spread. You're telling me you have nothing like that in your culture? Reggie replied, half laughing. The research team shared concerned glances with each other, and suddenly parts of this story started making sense. So, those people under the tower chewing at the steel, they weren't people, Grockald said. Nope, zombies, infected. People that have a horrible disease and haven't been given the fortune of an actual death. It started about a year ago. First reports of some kind of flu bug or something outside of Denver. Then it got worse. After a week in Denver, the whole county was quarantined. Then we got reports from Alberta. More cases of the bug there. Then we lost contact with London. The flu started super bad down there, too. It was a full pandemic at that point, called a worldwide quarantine. Then the people who died stopped being dead. Then the fan hit the shit for whatever sense that statement ever made, and zombies started popping up. Towns collapsed, cities burned, countries fell. Any town that didn't have a huge amount of guns and ammo didn't survive the first month. Screw cities, they were gone after week 2. Zombies ate corpses. Corpses that weren't completely eaten got up and started hunting other people to turn into more corpses. Whole families were wiped out. Whole countries gone to chaos. Unless we got them in the head, they got up and kept coming. No pain, no fear, no rest, no peace. Get bitten or scratched, it's a death sentence. Most would rather shoot themselves before the virus gets them. No cure because the people who could figure that out got eaten, Reggie explained with more calmness than the situation called for. The entire crew watching went pale and started sweating uncomfortably. And how long is a year exactly? How long has this been going on? Grakald asked. 7 days to a week, 52 weeks to 1 year, so 52 times 7. You figure it out. Been a while, Reggie replied. All of us went into a state of shock at the revelation we just witnessed. So that the person we had on ship was a zombie? An undead thing? Grakald said, glancing at one of his cohorts. Wait, you had one on board? Reggie started panicking. Stop! Calm down! Wait! We thought it was a human we could talk to because we had no idea what a zombie was. It didn't seem to think we were edible, though. It did bite at us, but nothing came of it. Even so, we scanned it and performed some tests and created a sterilizing agent. One spray of this agent and the thing was down for good. It was incinerated, to be sure, Grakald said. Wait, what? You did what now? Reggie asked, suddenly alert. We scanned it and found a strange viral bacterium of some kind affecting the thing. We created a sterilization agent to get rid of this odd pathogen. We have very advanced tech for disease prevention. It was almost too easy, to be honest. We turned it into an aerosol for easy use and applied 1 dose. The zombie then just died completely. I think the agent we used killed all of the viral cells, keeping it functioning, Grakald explained calmly. Well, shit, got any more of that stuff handy? Reggie asked. The formulation needs to be remade for the sake of safety. Now we have an idea of what exactly we are dealing with. We should be able to create a solution eventually, but I have to ask something. We have started combing through the data we found on the, how do you call it, outbreak? And we would like to know something. How did you survive this disaster? Grakald asked. I don't know. Not much different than any other disaster we go through, really. Just stayed alive, I guess. Made tough decisions, left behind relatives because they were infected. Basically the same way you would do it, I guess. Plan, scheme, see what's out there, learn to recognize threats. Band together for numbers and ammunition. Send out teams of unlucky bastards to find supplies. Make concessions. It's all about survival at the end of the day when the pizza guy's trying to eat your face, Reggie said. I am certain that it's a bit more complicated than that, but we will start working through that stage eventually, Grakald said. Oh, hold on. I know how the universe works, okay. Nothing's for free. What do you want from us? From zombie apocalypse to slavery, I'm guessing. If that's the case, just shoot me now. I didn't survive Armageddon just to be some alien dude's rent boy, Reggie replied, angered. Such a thing is highly illegal in Federation space. So no, that's not going to happen. But we are going to see if a proper variant of the sterilization agent exists and dispense it accordingly. You are correct that nothing is free, so in exchange we would like access to specific technologies, technical schematics, blueprints, or even the thing itself if possible, Grakald asked politely. You have spaceships and orbital shuttles and you want tech from us? Are you desperate or something? What the hell could we possibly have that you would benefit from? Reggie scoffed at him. Your construction and engineering techniques are unique and innovative, the likes of which we have never seen. We would like access to some of these technologies so we can figure out how to do them too. We don't have the same kind of fuel engines you do. Ours are very inefficient to the point they have been abandoned. Our colonies are expensive to make because of this logistical factor. We would also like access to your thought processes in terms of logistics, as your road and rail systems are, frankly, ingenious. We would also like to know how your hydroelectric dam systems work, among other things. See, there is plenty you have that we want, Grakald explained calmly, using photographs of the things he spoke of from our drones. Oh, okay. But most importantly, we want to uplift your species more than anything. The thing that makes your technology so impressive is the thought process behind its construction. We would have never thought to use moving water to turn turbines for power. That's hydroelectricity, right? We want to know how that what-if process in your head works. If that same principle can be applied to a mass fabrication facility, how much more efficient could it get? Or a fusion reactor, perhaps? How much power would one made by you produce? Or hell, even starship engineering? How big could we get? That is what we are really after. Can we come to some agreement? Grakald asked wryly. Seriously? After all the shit you've seen here? You still want to work with us? Are you serious? Reginald confusedly asked. Oh, come now. The situation is bad. We can take at least one aspect of it away. I can call the fleet for reinforcements and help you get back to something that resembles normal. For now, at least, we can help with one aspect. Infection. Recently bitten or scratched persons. We can make a one-time cure for that right now and get a distribution system started. At least we can start work on that. Once you are back up to a reasonable state in numbers and organization, we can see what happens from there. We've done it before. It worked out then, Grakald said. You have a lot to learn about human nature, it seems. I know where to find archives for digital and paperback. That will help with this problem. Pop culture and science and stuff. I can point them to you and can help yourself. Make copies. But for now, a cure for the zombie virus would be the best thing you can do right now. But fair warning, a lot of people have lost family members. We aren't exactly going to be friendly when you just randomly show up and start helping people. You have to be prepared for the fact that some of us don't take kindly to strangers in the best of times, let alone the apocalypse. That's something you need to plan for, Reggie said. Then we need to call the fleet before we can proceed with larger plans. In the meantime, Mr. Reginald, was it? Can you please proceed to the medical room? We need samples of blood and whatnot to see what we are working with. Maybe we can abduct a few more zombies and get a short-term cure for new infections going, Grakald said, gesturing to the door. Okay, but after that, can I get something to eat? I haven't had more than a few cans of beans in like 2 weeks.